One warm evening, a man was having dinner at a restaurant by the sea, enjoying the sunset and the steady sound of waves nearby. The air smelled of saltwater and grilled fish, a mix that had settled into the wood of the old deck under his feet. Pelicans flew low over the water, their wings catching the last light of the day, while the sky turned shades of orange and pink. The man sat alone at a table near the railing, dipping a piece of bread into garlic butter. He was calm and unhurried. He was not waiting for anyone and had no plans to leave soon. He simply sat, matching his breath to the slow rhythm of the sea, letting it calm him. He was nearly finished with his meal when something beneath him shifted slightly, enough to catch his attention. At first, it seemed like a shadow or a trick of the light, but then it moved again. From the darkness beneath the wooden planks, a small animal appeared, something unexpected. It was an otter, not playful or sleek like people usually imagine, but thin, quiet, and clearly unsure. Its fur, usually smooth and shiny, looked matted and damp. It moved with a bit of stiffness, and its thin frame made its bones show just under the coat. But its eyes were clear, tired, careful, and full of quiet need. It moved closer, drawn by the scent of fish left on the man's plate. The bones still shone with oil, with bits of meat still stuck to them. As the man finished his wine, the otter paused a short distance from the table, belly low to the wood, unsure whether to run or get closer. Most people might have shouted, called the staff, or thrown something. But the man stayed still. He did not react. His hands rested gently on his knees as he watched. Their eyes met, and in that quiet moment, something passed between them. The otter did not hiss or snarl. It just waited, body tense, but eyes speaking more of hunger than fear. The man slowly pushed the plate closer to the edge of the table. He made no sudden movements, just a calm, clear motion. The otter blinked, flinched, and then paused, thinking. After a moment, it stepped forward and started eating. It took small, quick bites at first, like it thought the food might be taken away. But when the man still did not move, the otter relaxed a little. It sat down and ate slower, its webbed paw resting quietly on the edge. For a while, the only sounds were the soft splash of waves and the crackle of fish bones. The man watched, not with surprise, but with something more like respect. He did not know why this wild animal had chosen to come to him, or why he had not felt afraid. He just knew it felt right, like it was meant to happen. He had eaten at that restaurant many times before, in the same seat, ordering the same fish. Nothing like this had ever happened. But tonight, this animal had come out of the shadows, and something inside him had shifted. When the otter was done, it sat back, licked its whiskers, and looked at the man again, not like it wanted more food, but like it was waiting for what came next. The man looked closely and noticed a tear near its left ear, with old scabs hidden beneath the fur. A piece of wire was wrapped around one of its back legs, cutting into the skin. "You have really been through something, haven't you?" he said gently, his voice nearly drowned out by the ocean breeze. The otter did not respond, of course, but it also did not run when the man stood up slowly and carefully. The otter stood too. He took a few steps toward the narrow path that led away from the restaurant, and when he turned to look back, the otter was following, not close, but not staying behind either. They walked like that along the beach. The man was barefoot now, holding his shoes in one hand. The otter followed slowly, clumsy on land but staying close. When they reached his small cottage, a weathered place tucked among the sand dunes, framed by driftwood and sea glass, the man opened the screen door and held it open. The otter paused at the edge of the porch. Then, as if it had already decided, it walked inside. He did not try to touch it. Instead, he laid out an old quilt in the corner of the room and placed a bowl of water next to it. The otter sniffed at the water, then drank. When it finished, it turned a few slow circles before curling up on the blanket. The man watched for a long time before turning off the light. That first night, he barely slept, not because he was afraid, but because he was amazed. In the morning, the otter was still there. Days passed, and a quiet rhythm developed between them. The man began calling it Scout, not because he expected it to respond, but because the name felt right. It came from a memory of his father, who used to say the wind was called Scout because it always came before a storm, warning everything in its path. To him, the otter felt like a quiet warning too, that life could still change without warning, that the world still held some surprises. At first, he did not tell anyone. What could he even say? That a wild otter had moved in with him? That every evening it returned, sometimes after spending hours exploring the hills, always finding its way back to that same corner in his room? Some nights it curled up by the fireplace. Other times, it sat by the window, eyes scanning the night like it was guarding something. The man was not a hermit, but he appreciated quiet. He had spent most of his life working in construction, big city projects, tall buildings. When he retired, he chose the coast. No wife, no kids. Just the sea and the quiet he once thought would always be enough. But over the years, that quiet had become too much. The routine had become hollow. He had not even noticed how deep that emptiness was, until Scout arrived. There was something grounding about the otter. It was small but full of life. The man started waking earlier, walking farther, cooking with more care. He found a wildlife vet online and drove an hour inland to meet her. She gave him medicine for the otter's leg and explained how to slowly build more trust. He followed each instruction closely. Each week, the otter grew more comfortable, sitting closer, taking food from his hand, resting its head near his foot. One evening it even surprised them both by gently leaning in. Not everything was simple. There were nights when Scout disappeared, only to return by sunrise. Sometimes it came back with new scrapes, limping worse than before. The man would wake and sit up, the porch light still on like a signal. And every time, no matter how late, Scout always came back. They never shared words, but they understood each other. One rainy afternoon, the man sat in his chair with an old book open, his reading glasses resting on his nose, when Scout quietly climbed onto the rug beside him and lay down. The man stayed still, barely breathing. Slowly and gently, he reached out and placed his hand near Scout's paw. The otter did not pull away. It looked up at him, blinked once, and let out a soft gruff purr, not loud, not steady, just enough. The man smiled. From that moment, things shifted again. Scout became less of a visitor, more of a companion. They now shared the space fully. The man started talking more, to Scout, to himself, about the tides, the clouds, even memories he had not touched in years. Sometimes he would laugh out loud and wonder what his old coworkers would think if they saw him now, chatting with an otter like an old friend. But he did not mind. People began to notice him too, at the grocery store, the bait shop. He walked differently now, more upright, more relaxed. There was something new in his expression, something lighter, less closed off. One day at the market, a woman asked if his grandchildren were visiting. "You seem less alone," she said. He just smiled and answered, "A companion found me." It did not stay quiet for long. One afternoon, a neighbor saw the otter stretched out on the porch in the sun. Later that evening, animal control showed up with gloves and cages. The man did not panic. He stood calmly at the door. Scout sat behind him, her whiskers twitching as she peeked through the screen toward the sound of distant waves. "She is bonded," he said, "not tame, just trusting." He showed them photos, vet notes, and short clips of her lying beside him. One of the officers flipped through the pages and then glanced into the house. The otter stared back, calm and relaxed, almost as if challenging them to disagree. "It is wild," the officer finally said, "but it is bonded. Be careful." "I am," the man replied, and he meant it. After that, people in town kept their distance, but with quiet respect. The man and the otter became a quiet story people told, but no one interfered. Some even started leaving bits of fish in wrapped containers near the gate or small bowls of water during the hot weeks. One neighbor slipped a note under his door, "She is beautiful. Stay safe." It was signed only with a heart. As winter came, Scout spent more time inside. She lay near the fire, her tail twitching softly in sleep. The man added another blanket, fixed the cold window, and patted her spot with old flannel shirts. He stopped using the spare room. Scout preferred that corner. He started cooking again, for both of them. In the mornings he made 2 eggs, one plain, always set aside for her. They ate together in silence, the sea breeze rattling the windows. They grew older together. Scout's coat became full and glossy again. Her limp eased. The man's joints hurt less. He started walking again, painting small watercolors by the window, even whistling in the mornings, things he had not done in years. She watched him with those same golden eyes, steady now, still untamed. At night he read out loud. Not because Scout needed stories, but because he did. His voice, once unused for days at a time, found its rhythm again. There were still moments of worry. One week, Scout did not return for 3 nights. The man could not sleep. He left the porch light on, whispered her name into the fog, waited near the dunes. Then, just before dawn, she limped in through the back door. He did not ask where she had been. He simply cleaned her wounds and said, "You are home." She rested her head on his knee. Most evenings they sat quietly, watching the waves together. A man and a wild animal that had stopped running. A kind of family, with no need for titles or words. Just being there. She sometimes perched on the porch rail, tail swaying slowly, while he strummed an old guitar, his hands stiff, but still able. Their shadows stretched side by side in the dim light. He often thought of that first evening, the way her eyes had looked not just hungry, but searching. The way she had waited instead of running. The way he had chosen to offer instead of turn away. That one simple moment, moving the plate forward, had shaped the rest of his life. He never figured out whether she was sent by fate or just wandered by chance. He did not need to. Whether it was a miracle or something ordinary, she had come. She had stayed. And he was better for it. Sometimes, one quiet act of kindness on a regular evening can lead to something truly rare.